All right, let's talk about something real. We're going to dive into a feeling that is, both incredibly personal but also surprisingly universal. What do you do when you have a dream, a vision, and it feels like you're the only person on the planet who can see it? Let's get into it. Just take a second and think about that. Have you ever been so excited about something, a big idea, a project you're passionate about, maybe a whole new path for your life, and you share it with someone, and what you get back is nothing? Just a blank stare, or, a polite little nod, maybe even a chuckle? That silence, wow, it can be deafening, right? It's so much louder than any outright criticism, because in that moment, you realize you're on your own with this thing. And the very first thing we need to get straight is that this is not some unique failure on your part. Not at all. This feeling is a shared human experience. In fact, if you're feeling this, you're in some pretty incredible company. This is often the very first hurdle you have to clear on the path to doing something that actually matters. I mean, let's look at some stories. When Thomas Edison was just a boy, his teachers, the people supposed to be encouraging him, they literally told him he was, quote, too stupid to learn anything. They just gave up on him. Can you imagine if he'd actually believed them? If he'd accepted that judgment? We could very well still be reading by candlelight.
Or how about this one? Walt Disney. The man whose name is basically a synonym for imagination. Yeah, he was fired from a newspaper because his editor said he lacked imagination. I mean, the irony is just, it's almost funny now, but you can bet it wasn't funny to him at the time. It was just another door slammed in his face.
J.K. Rowling. 12. Not one, not two, 12 different publishers looked at the manuscript for Harry Potter and said, nope, not interested. 12 times, the professional world told her that her dream wasn't good enough, but she just kept knocking on doors. See, these stories, they aren't really just about the eventual success. They're about the incredible resilience it takes to navigate that deep, profound doubt from the outside world. So, okay, if we can all agree that doubt from other people is pretty much a guarantee, how in the world do you keep going? Well, here's the secret. The answer has nothing to do with trying to convince them. It's not about winning them over. It's about building something inside of yourself that doesn't need their approval. This is what we're going to call the unbreakable core. This right here is the absolute heart of it all. This is the foundation for everything. Getting applause, getting encouragement, getting validation from others. Look, that's all great. It's a bonus. It's nice to have. But your own belief in your vision, that's different. That is completely 100% non-negotiable. It's the one and only thing you absolutely have to get started. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it intrinsic motivation. It sounds a bit academic, but all it really means is having an engine inside you that runs on its own fuel, on your passion, your curiosity, your purpose, not on the fuel of what other people think. When the applause isn't there, when everyone else is silent, this is the voice that says, okay, what's the next step? It's your anchor in that storm of doubt, holding you steady when the winds of criticism are blowing. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, he just nailed this idea. He said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And what he meant by that is if your why, your deep personal reason for doing something, if that's strong enough, you can put up with almost any how. You can endure the how of being rejected, the how of being misunderstood, the how of feeling totally alone. That why becomes your shield.
Okay, so that's the mindset, that's the big idea, but ideas are only useful if you can actually put them into practice, right? So let's get practical. Let's get our hands dirty. We're gonna build what I like to call your resilience toolkit. 3 concrete, actionable strategies you can use when that silence from the world feels a little too loud. So here are the 3 tools we're putting in our toolkit. First, we're gonna learn how to completely change the way we look at rejection. Second, we're gonna use the power of our own mind to make that future we want feel real and achievable.
And third, we're going to build a system, a discipline that keeps us going even on the days we don't feel like it. All right, let's break each one of these down. Let's go back to our friend Edison for tool number 1, because this quote is the ultimate reframe. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see the shift? Every no, every failed attempt, every piece of criticism, it's not a stop sign. It is not a final verdict on you or your idea. It's just data. That's all it is. It's useful information that's telling you what doesn't work, which, by the way, just gets you one step closer to what does. Rejection stops being failure, and it becomes feedback. Now for our second tool, visualization. And this isn't some fluffy, wishful thinking thing. There's real science here. When you take the time to vividly, clearly picture your success, what it looks like, feels like, smells like, your brain actually fires up the same neural pathways as if you were really doing it. You're basically giving your brain a roadmap to success, making what feels impossible start to feel inevitable. And our third tool is discipline. This is your safety net for the days when motivation just isn't there. Because trust me, it won't always be there. But a simple daily routine of just showing up and doing the work, even for 15 minutes, that creates its own momentum. Consistency is the engine that will carry you through the valleys. So all of this brings us to our final and maybe the most powerful piece of this entire puzzle. Once you've learned to reframe rejection as data and you've started building that silent discipline, there's one last thing to master. And it's all about managing the one voice that you can never escape, the voice inside your own head. Think about Muhammad Ali. He was famous for declaring, "I am the greatest," long before he had the belts to prove it. And a lot of people called him arrogant, but it wasn't arrogance, it was armor. He was literally building his own reality with his words. Before he convinced the world, he had to first convince himself. He was his own first believer and his own loudest cheerleader, especially when other people were still laughing. He spoke his truth until it became the truth. And this right here is the final crucial mindset shift. If your whole reason for doing something is to prove your doubters wrong, well, you're still letting them be in charge. You're still letting them set the rules of the game. But when your goal shifts, when it becomes about proving yourself right, about bringing the vision that only you can see to life, that's when you become truly free. The outside noise just fades into the background. So let's just end with this thought. Nearly every single thing we value, every invention, every piece of art, every movement that changed the world, it started as a quiet, stubborn little idea in one person's mind. An idea that was probably met with a whole lot of silence. The journey always begins in that silence. The only real question is, will you be the person who's brave enough to listen to it?